How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Gimel, Daf 63 of Minchas Machavas. Friends, update on my voice. It's still hanging in there. I haven't really spoken for like 2 days because it's Sunday. So yesterday was Shabbos. So I basically didn't speak for this is probably the most I've used, the last 30 seconds is like the most I've used my voice maybe in like 2 days. So that was in the hope of preserving whatever I have of my voice. So we still have something here to work with. I really hope that by the end of his daf I haven't lost that, but hopefully we'll be able to hold on to it, and hopefully it'll get stronger moving forward rather than weaker. So that's just an update on the voice. Friends, we got a great daf ahead of us. Let me actually pull up the slides over here. Great. So basically we're going to finish the parak today. We're going to finish the 5th parak of Minchas Machavas. Very, very exciting. We're mamish making strides through Menachos. It's unbelievable. We're starting Sefer Vayikra. This week. I'm on cloud 9. Super excited. Mamish. I'm going to experience Vayikra like I've never experienced Vayikra before. Unbelievable. I imagine I'm not the only one here at Babble on Talmud who's excited. Today we are discussing the Minchas Machavas, the Minchas Marcheshes, the Minchas Machavas. Very exciting. We're not going to get into too much detail about them, to too much of the nitty and the gritty about them. I believe that is going to be in chapter 7, chapter 7 is called Ve'elu Menachos Nikmatzos. Now, interestingly, in the Mishnayos, so it's one of those examples where the parak in the Gemara is different than the parak in the Mishnayos. In the Mishnayos, that would actually be the very next parak. Right now we're talking about today Machavas, Marcheshes, Machavas, and we'll go right into that next parak where I think it really gets into the nitty gritty about the different menachos, which finally I'd be excited to do because we're 2 months into Minchas Machavas and we haven't really got into the nitty gritty of like how the kometz works and what happens in the oven and how you break it up afterwards and all those kinds of details and the mixing it, the real nitty and gritty of Menachos we haven't yet gotten to. But the way that our Gemara is actually tomorrow, we will be beginning the 6th parak, which is all about the Minchas HaOmer. That's also exciting. So anyways, so we're not getting into the mamish, the nitty gritty of these menachos today, but we are going to learn some important facts, important details about the Minchas Machavas, the Minchas Marcheshes, the Minchas Machavas. So the first section of today's daf, the Minchas Machavas versus Marcheshes. What is a Machavas? What's a Marcheshes? Extremely important stuff from Minchas Machavas. Next, if Machavas or Marcheshes refers to the vessel or the mincha, it's a technical question, but there's an afkamina in the Gemara related to it about is a Minchas Machavas called a Minchas Machavas because is it a reference to the Machavas the reference to the vessel itself, or is the Machavas the reference to the mincha that is prepared in a Machavas? Is an afkamina for what if a person says, I'm going to bring a Machavas? Does that mean I'm going to bring a cooking vessel? Or does it mean that I'm going to bring a mincha that is prepared in a Machavas? So that's an afkamina, friends. That is the first Mishnah of today's daf. And the second Mishnah, and the final Mishnah in the 5th parak of Minchas Machavas, discusses the loaves of a Minchas Machavas, Minchas Ma'afeh Tanur. That could be either chalas or rakikin, and we will discuss what combinations, if any, can be brought of them. It relates to a machlokes that we actually referenced a few days ago. Friends, let's jump in and enjoy Daf Gimel, Daf 63 of Minchas Machavas together. Let's do it. Friends, we begin on Daf Gimel of Minchas Machavas all the way at the top. Ha'omer hari olai b'machvas. If a person says, I'm going to bring a Minchas Machavas, lo yavi b'marcheshes, don't bring a Minchas Marcheshes. Right, if he says, I'm going to bring a mincha on a Machavas, So don't bring or in a machvas. Don't bring it in a marcheshes. But marcheshes lo yavi b'machvas. If he says he's going to bring a mincha in a marcheshes, don't bring it in or technically probably on a machvas. Ma bein machvas and marcheshes. What's a machvas? What's a marcheshes? What's the difference? Marcheshes yesh la kisui, machvas ein lo kisui tiver Yossi Aglili. Yossi Aglili says, you know what the difference is? They're the same vessel. The difference is that the minchas machvas has no covering on it, and the minchas marcheshes has a covering on it. That's the whole difference. That's what it's the same vessel. Minchas machvas does not have a cover, a lid. Minchas marcheshes is prepared, right? It's prepared with oil. It's fried in a vessel, and that has the marcheshes has a lid on top of it. It's covered with a lid. That is the big difference. Reb Chanina ben Gamliel says, marcheshes, and this I think is how we generally understand it. Marcheshes amuka, ma'aseh rochashin. That a minchas marcheshes is a deeper pan tray thing. We'll get into exactly what it looks like, but it's a deeper vessel. So almost like a sufganiya kind of thing, right? It's like deep fried. Therefore it's a doughier, softer kind of result. Machvas tsofa u'maiseh kashin, whereas the minchas machvas is a thinner vessel and kind of like a crepe kind of pan. It's a thinner vessel, and therefore the result is it's a thinner, harder. I guess unlike a crepe, which is soft, but this is it's a harder. This is just flour and oil and some water maybe. What did we say? We said that. Did we say that all of the? I think we said kol hamenachos niloshes b'poshin. Is that not what we said recently? On Daf Nun Hey, we had said kol hamenachos niloshes b'poshin. All menachos are kneaded with lukewarm water. So I imagine that these menachos. What are we talking about? That the minchas machvas, I guess, was probably, it had some water in there. So I guess flour, water, oil. That's the ganze Zach. Probably not exactly like a crepe. How would you make a crepe? I don't know. How do you make a crepe? I have no clue. Maybe put some eggs in there or something like that. I don't know. How do you make a crepe? All right, let's go weiter. Where are we? Fine. Givaldig. So the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says the big difference is whether there's a lid or not. Marcheshes has a lid, a machvas does not. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel says, I think like we generally think of it, that machvas is a thinner pan, whereas marcheshes is a deeper dish, kind of utensil. Says the Gemara, my time with Rabbi Yossi, how come Rabbi Yossi Aglili says it's all about the lid? Ilim, if you're going to tell me marcheshes, the asya arachushe alev. If you say because marcheshes is like rachushe alev, the stirrings of the heart, and your heart is internal. It's private, kind of like it's covered with a lid. Kidesiv rachash libi dover tov, my heart stirred with something good. Umachvas de asya mavuche hapeh, whereas machvas is mavuche hapeh. It's like the utterings of the mouth. Kida amri inche minabeach nabuche, utteringly uttering. So if we want to say, therefore, marcheshes is covered and machvas is exposed. But I could argue punkt verkehrt. Machvas de asya machbue alev. Machvas is like the machvas is machbue alev, that which is hidden in the heart. So the machvas should be covered. Tichsiv lama nachbeisa levroyach. Lovin ha'arami says to Yaakov Avinu, lama nachbeisa levroyach. How come you snuck away to run away? Which is quietly, in a covered kind of way, concealed kind of way. The Marcheshes, the asya arachushe kidamri inche, have a merachshan sifsuse. And marcheshes could be like merachshan sifsuse, to utter your lips. No, so you can kind of argue either way. You can make an argument to say that machvas is either should be exposed or hidden. And the same thing for Marcheshes. Ella Gemira rather, Rabbi Yosef Glili Pashadat, a tradition that Azoy Gaitis, that this is how it was, that Machvas is exposed and Marcheshes is covered. Get Valdig. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, Mr. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, Marcheshes Amuka. So he says that Marcheshes is deep. Dichsiv, as the Bible says, V'chon naise ba Marcheshes. Right? How do you know Marcheshes is a deeper vessel? Because it says anything made in a Marcheshes. Any mincha made in a Marcheshes means it has to be deep, that you could put something inside of it. Machvas, tzofa, whereas a machvas is thinner, dichsiv, ve'al machvas. The pasuk says on a machvas. You don't put it in a machvas, you put it on a machvas. So therefore, a machvas is a thinner kind of pan, tray, utensil that you put something on, whereas Marcheshes is a deeper thing that you put something in. Givaldig. Now moving on to the next section of today's daf. If a machvas / Marcheshes refers to the vessel or the mincha, we're going to see now in Afkamina between the two, and it's machlekes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel about how to understand it. Here we go. Tanur Rabbanan the Rebbe says Beis Shammai says Beis Shammai Omer Harei Olay Marcheshes. If a person says, I am making a neder about a Marcheshes, I am going to bring a Marcheshes. What does that mean? Does it mean he's going to literally bring like a Marcheshes pan? Like a deep dish pan? Is that what he's saying? He's going to go to his kitchen and pull out a Marcheshes and bring that to the Beis Hamikdash. Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying, I'm going to bring a korban mincha, minchas Marcheshes? Well, we don't know. We probably should have to wait until Eliyahu Hanavi comes and get online to ask him all of our questions. Misafgalu, because they weren't sure. If minchas, what do you say? What? Marcheshes. If the minchas Marcheshes is called a Marcheshes because it's a mincha that is prepared in a Marcheshes, and therefore Marcheshes is a reference to Kli. And if a person says, I'm going to bring Marcheshes, it means he's literally going to bring a vessel. Oh, al shem ma'aseh. Or is it because when you prepare dough in a Marcheshes, so the oil it becomes like a fluffier Pillsbury doughboy kind of situation, and you poke it and it bounces around and it's fluffy and puffy and bouncy like a Marcheshes, and things are moving and crawling around and moving around when you touch it. So maybe that's a reference to the mincha itself. That's kind of like a dynamically touchy, kind of pushy Pillsbury doughboy-y kind of thing. So is it about the vessel or is it about the mincha? Beis Hillel kli haya. Beis Hillel says, I don't have a question. It's a vessel. Kli haya b'mikdash. There was a vessel in the Beis Hamikdash, Marcheshes Shema, and it was called a Marcheshes. B'domer kimin klabus amok, and it was like a deep klabus. U shebatzek munach b'socho, and when a dough is put in the klabus, domer kimin tfuche abratim, it is like, or abrosim, it is like these apple kind of things, kimin blute ayavanim, or like Greek acorns. Let's go weiter for a second. V'omer, and also the pasuk says, v'chol naise ba Marcheshes, anything made in a Marcheshes. Ve'al machvas, and on a machvas. Ama al shuma kelim nikru v'lo al shuma seim. So we see that it is right. Don't worry, I'll explain all the stuff that was that sounded like we need to explain it. I'll explain it in a second. Let's just finish this up. So the pasuk says, ba Marcheshes, in, as we said earlier, in a Marcheshes, al machvas, on a machvas, which means the Marcheshes is the type of kli that the mincha goes in, the machvas is the type of kli that the mincha goes on. So Marcheshes, machvas, they're types of vessels, and therefore Beis Hillel says, I don't have a question about this. If a person says, I'm going to bring a machvas to the Beis Hamikdash, well, he's going to go take a vessel and bring the vessel to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, Beis Hillel had explained that the Marcheshes was that there was a type of vessel in the Beis Hamikdash, and it was called a Marcheshes, and it was like a klabus. What's a klabus? Here's what a klabus looks like. You got that right. A dental impression. It's basically what a klubus looks like. Friends, if you can imagine, if you try to search the internet for a photo of a klubus, they're kind of slim pickings. But if you poke around and you keep on searching and you type around for different things, maybe a U or a U with lights on it, or you end up landing on dental impressions and saying, you know what? The fact of the matter is, it kind of looks like a dental impression. That is basically what a klabus looks like, a dental impression. It's like this U, it's deep, and it's like a U. Obviously, it's bigger than a dental impression, but it's basically, blow up the dental impression by maybe 10 times or something. And then you'll have this like deep dish with like these circles in it. And you take the dough and you put them in the different circles, and it becomes those tapuche brosim or whatever, or the Greek acorns. I don't really know what those are, but the point is that it would make some kind of round. Why can't they just say like sufganiyar or something? I imagine it's not too far off. Anyways, that's basically what this klabus is. Basically, according to Beis Hillel, essentially what the Marcheshes vessel was it was this kind of blown up dental impression looking thing. Like that's literally the shape. It's like a U, and it's deep, and there are holes in the bottom, and you fill it up with oil, and you put the dough in, and it fries that way, and it becomes a kind of soft dough thingy. Friends, now we get up to the final Mishnah of the 5th parak of Masechta Menachos, and the final section of today's daf. The loaves of a minchas machavas, says the Mishnah. Hare alai betanur, a person says, I'm going to bring a oven baked mincha. Lo yavi maife kupach, don't bring something baked in a kupach. Chevra, we will see what all this stuff is in just a moment. Let's just read all the stuff and then we'll explain all this stuff. V'lo maife re'ofim, not something made on tiles. That I actually don't have a slide for because I don't really get it. How are you going to bake something on a tile? I don't know. Wait, let's talk about it for a second. I don't know. I guess you take some kind of, I think point is you heat up a tile in the oven or something like that, and then it's like really hot, and then maybe you put the dough on the tile or something. Umayfa yorus ha'aravim, or the Arabic cauldrons. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ratzamevi maifa kupach. Rabbi Yehuda says you can bring a maifa kupach. Okay, let's look at a few things. I don't have any slide for the tiles because I imagine it's a tile, but okay. This is on this here slide. There is 3 photos. There are 3 photos: an oven, a kupach, and a cauldron. An oven is on the left. Where did I get that photo from? Yeah, okay, fine. The oven is on the left. I'm not 100% sure if that's technically the oven that we're talking about. What I do know is that the oven that the Tanur Kama is talking about it has places to put multiple stoves, which you could see on that photo. There are places to put multiple stoves. So while I don't know that that's 100% the oven that we are talking about, it might be, and it definitely has a place for multiple stoves. That is the kind of oven that a maifasoner would be baked in. Now, next to that, in the middle photo, is a kupach. A kupach is an oven with just one, with enough space for one stove that you could put at the top of it, like one pot that you could put at the top of it. Now, obviously, because we're talking about bread and baking, we're going to be talking about baking it in the oven. But anyways, the oven that the Mishnah is talking about has openings at the top for multiple stoves, whereas the kupach, multiple stoves, multiple pots, whereas the kupach only has a place at the top for one pot. And a cauldron, I don't know for sure. That's just kind of a photo on the right of what looks to me like probably a cauldron. And I guess the point is maybe they would heat it up, put a fire. I understand it. Maybe I hope I understand it right. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But they would kind of put a fire inside of the cauldron, and then you can like bake bread probably on the sides of it. Heat it up real good. Anyways, those are our little oven options. So let's read the Mishnah again. Hari olay besoner. A person says, I'm going to bring up minchas maifasoner. Lo yavi maife kupach. Don't bring the kupach, which is the one pot oven. V'lo maife re'ofim, and not something baked on tiles. Umaife yoris, or something baked in a yoris aravium, something baked in a Arabic cauldron. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Ratza maybe Maife Kupach. Rabbi Yehuda says he can. Rabbi Yehuda has no problem with bringing a minchas Maife Soner that was made in a kupach, a one-pot oven. Minchas Maife, when a person says, I'm going to bring a minchas Maife Soner, lo yavi mechza chalus umechza rekikin. Choose to be, right, because we have a pasuk over here. I'm going to read you a pasuk right now, okay? The pasuk says, v'chisakriv korban mincha maife soner. If a person is going to bring a mincha maife soner, so there are two options. Soles chalos, matzos blulos bashamin. Alternatively, urikike, matzos mishuchim bashamin. Either, right, so the pasuk there by a mincha maife soner talks about chalos and talks about rikikin. So according to the, who is this, the Tanna Kama? Maybe. So according to the Tanna Kama, so olay minchas maife lo yavi mechza chalos mechza rikikin. Don't bring 5 chalas and 5 rikikin, right? Because we know, we've learned a few times recently that we're talking about 10 of each bread. So don't bring 5 chalas and 5 rikikin, right? This was where we saw recently, or we saw twice recently from Rav Papa, who had been saying that dafka 10 of each, not 5 and 5, like as we're going to see Reb Shimon in a second. But it says the Tanna Kama that you're going to, either bring 10 chalas or 10 rikikin. Chalas are kind of thicker, more thickly baked doughs, and rikikin are more thinly baked. Both, of course, are unleavened, right? These were not chametz, of course. So 10 of either chalas or rikikin. Reb Shimon matir mipnei shu korban echad. But Reb Shimon says you can bring 5 chalas and 5 rikikin if you wish, because it's all the same korban. It's a mincha maife soner. So therefore, bring 10 chalas or 10 rikikin, or a mix. Half and half is also fine. Tanur Rabbanan the rabbis taught maife soner v'lo maife kupach. It has to be made in a tanur with multiple stoves, multiple ovens, multiple pots, and not a kupach which has only room for one pot. V'lo maife ru'afim, not on tiles. V'lo maife yoris aravim, not the Arabic cauldrons. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, tanur shnei paimim. So that Rabbi Yehuda says, well, there are 2 different psukim that talk about maife soner, and therefore it says tanur twice. So tanur is limiting, right? Specifically a tanur, not a kupach, but it says it twice. So ein miut achar miut ela l'rabos, that when you have a double limitation, it actually, 2 negatives makes a positive. A double limitation actually comes to include rather than to exclude, and it's coming to include the hachshir maife kupach, to say that a mincha maife soner prepared in a kupach is a-okay. Reb Shimon Omer says, Reb Shimon, tanur shnei paimim, says Reb Shimon, it says tanur twice. Echad shtei afyosin betanur, one to say that it shall be baked in a tanur. Ve'echad, the other one, sheyeh ekdeshon betanur, that they become kadosh in the tanur, that when the loaves are baked in the tanur, they now become kadosh to the extent that if they now leave the azara, they will be posel biyotze. The Reb Shimon Aisfar, but does Reb Shimon really say that they become kadosh in the tanur to be posel biyotze if they leave the azara? We learn in a Mishnah later on Daf Tzadihei. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon la'olam avirogil lomar shetehei shtei alechem v'lechem aponim, that shtei alechem and lechem aponim ksherus ba'azara uksherus bebeis pagi, are ksherus in the azar, but also in beis pagi. Ha'i, anywhere in beis pagi, I believe, means essentially anywhere in Yerushalayim, even outside of the azar. Now, if we're saying that once these breads have been baked in the oven, they become kadosh, well, then once they leave the azar, then they should be pasul. Amrava ema shieh ekdeshin l'shum tanur. It means that when you set aside all it's saying is that when you set aside the flour initially to be used for these korbanos, I guess, whether the shtei lechem, whether the lechem aponim, or I guess also the maife soner, or anything prepared in these ovens. So Reb Shimon would say that the oven itself is not mikadesh, it's that it'll be possible biyotze. No, because we said anywhere in Yerushalayim. What it means is that when you set it aside initially, right? Amrava ema sheyeh ekdeshin l'shum tanur. Now, when they are set aside initially, they should be set aside initially with the intention to be baked in the oven, but not necessarily that the oven is going to be mekadesh them to now be possible biyotze. No, because they can be eaten anywhere in Yerushalayim. Now, the machlokes about when a person says he's going to bring a mincha ma'if Tanur, so does he have to bring 10 challahs or 10 rakikin? What about 5 and 5? Can you do the mix? I added that word, lasos, dvar rishus. Okay, so we're talking about voluntary offerings. A person decides that he wants to donate a minchas ma'if Tanur, good anya. Korban mincha, when it says korban mincha, Amr Yehuda, minayin la'omer ari olait minchas ma'if shelo yavi mechza chalus mechza rekikin. Says Rabbi Yehuda, how do I know that if a person says that I'm going to bring a minchas ma'if Tanur, you should not bring 5 chalas and 5 rekikin? Tam lomer korban mincha. Right? The pasuk says, "V'chisakriv korban mincha, korban echad amarti l'cha v'lo shnayim v'shlosha korbanos." 1 mincha, not multiple menachos. So I don't want you bringing chalas and rekikin. No. Either 10 chalas or 10 rekikin, no mixing and matching. Reb Shimon says to him, "V'chinemar korban shnei paim." It doesn't say korban twice. It says korban once, and that's what he learns out from that is v'alo lo nemar el korban echad v'nemar bo chalas v'rekikin. Reb Shimon wants to understand this differently and saying, look, it says korban once. And right, what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, "V'chisakriv." I'm reading the pasuk, korban mincha, right? Korban mincha ma'if Tanur, solas chalos matzos v'shen rekike matzos. Right. So the pasuk mentions korban, and it starts talking about chalos. It talks about rekikin. Rabbi Shimon wants to argue that both chalos and rekikin are 2 sides of the same korban, and therefore, if you want, so me'ata rotza lo v'chalos maybe rekikin, maybe mechza chalus mechza rekikin, maybe. Therefore, Reb Shimon says, look, if you want to bring 10 chalas, amazing. You want to bring 10 rekikin, also amazing. You want to bring 5 chalas and 5 rekikin, also amazing. Uvolilon, and you mix them all together, and you mix them all together, and then after you bake them, you break them all up, and you take in 1 kometz from the whole mixture, the kometz mishneim, and you take a kometz from the whole mixture of rekikin and chalus, if that's what you chose to do. And even if when you took out the kometz, the kometz was entirely just from one of the 2 types, it is all good. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer says, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, minayin the Omer ari olai minchas ma'if. How do you know that when a person says, I'm going to bring a minchas ma'if Tanur, shelo yavi mechza chalus mechza rekikin, that he should not bring 5 chalas and 5 rekikin like his father had said? Meaning, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda is saying the same thing as his father. Don't bring 5 chalas and 5 rekikin. Tam lomer v'chol mincha asher te'afe b'Tanur. Okay, so the pasuk starts off by talking about a minchas ma'if Tanur, and then it continues. V'chol naise b'Marcheshes v'al machvas. And then we talk about a minchas Marcheshes and minchas Machavas. Now, of course, a minchas Marcheshes, as we said in the first mission of today, if you say you're going to bring a minchas Marcheshes, you can't bring a Machavas. If you say you're going to bring a Machavas, you can't bring a Marcheshes. You have to go, do all of the same type. La kohen hamakiv osa lo siya, it goes to the kohen who offers it. And similarly, v'chol mincha Babble b'shemen v'chareva. And any mincha that is mixed with oil as well as dry. Now, also there, a mincha, right? A mincha. What's a dry mincha? A mincha schote. By mincha schote it says lo yasem alei Hashem v'lo yitin alei levona. You can't have any oil on it. You can't mix a mincha schote, a dry mincha, with a oily mincha. It goes to Aharon. So therefore, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi wants to argue, v'chol ha'omer lamata, just like when it says v'chol mincha blula b'shemen v'chareva, shnei minim chalukin, it's 2 different types, right? So whether that's talking about, right, meaning we had talked about ma'if Tanur, and then we talked about Marcheshes and Machavas, then we talked about blula v'chareva, just like the Marcheshes and Machavas and the blula v'chareva. You can't mix and match a Machavas and a Marcheshes. You can't mix and match a blula and a chareva. So af v'chol ha'omer l'malo, also when the first pasuk starts with v'chol mincha te'afe b'Tanur, a ma'if Tanur, shnei minin chalukin, the 2 types, the chalas and rekikin, are separate. You can't mix and match. Therefore, you can't mix and match Machavas and Marcheshes. You can't mix and match Blula and Chareva, and you can't mix and match Chalos and Rikikin either. Rabbi Yehuda, Shaper come Rabbi Shimon. Now the Gemara asks the Kasha and Rabbi Yehuda, saying, look, Rabbi Shimon made a good point. It says Korban once, and because it says Korban once, and in that same pasuk that it says Korban once, it says Machvas, it says Chalos, it says Rikikin. Rabbi Shimon argues, they're all the same. They're just different aspects of the same Korban. Sure, bring 5 of each. What's the big deal? So Amalach, Rabbi Yehuda responds, Bashemin. It says, yes, it only says Korban in that pasuk once, but it says Bashemin in that pasuk twice. So Command Chsiv Korban Dami, it's as if it said Korban twice. Meaning, what does the pasuk say? It says V'chisakev Korban mincha mai pesoner solas chalos matzos blulos bashamin rukike matzos meshuchim bashamin. By the chalos and by the rikikin, it says shemen by each of them in order to say that they are unique. You can't mix and match. Bring either 10 chalos or 10 rikikin. Reb Shimon, eat lo ksiv bashemen. Reb Shimon says, no. Reb Shimon sticks to his argument that it says korban once, and therefore chalas and rikikin are all part of the same korban. If you bring 5 and 5, that's fine. So why does it say shemen twice? Well, because if it didn't say shemen twice, I might think you have to bring 5 and 5. Therefore, it says shemen twice to say you don't have to bring 5 and 5. You could also bring all of chalas or all of rikikin. That's also fine. The Reb Shimon iloksiv bashemen. If it didn't say bashemen twice, avamina, I would say davka mechzer chalas v'mechzer rikikin. I would go arasof with that argument. I would have said that, you see, it says korban once, and then it talks about chalas and rikikin. I would think davka, you need to bring half chalas and half rikikin. That's the point. Avachalas lechudayu v'rikikin lechudayu emalo. I would say, but not. You can't just bring chalas or just rikikin. It's saying korban, it's one korban, and it talks about chalas and rikikin. You have to bring half and half. So Kamash Milan, it says shemen twice to divide them up and say, no, you can also have the option to bring just chalas or just rikikin. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, I know Avua, aren't Rabbi Yehuda? Now the Gemara asks another question. Is Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda not saying the same exact thing as his father? His father had said, you're not allowed to bring 5 chalas and 5 rikikin. And the son also, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda also says, you can't bring 5 chalas and 5 rikikin. Aren't they saying the same thing? The nafkamina is bidi evid. That Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda would say, even bidi evid, it's possible. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, because he compares it, for example, to a blula and a charev. For a minchas chotet, there's not allowed to be any oil. If it gets mixed together with a mincha blula with oil, possible. Of course it's possible. Even b'di eved it's possible. So Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda would say that even b'di eved, if you brought 5 and 5, it's possible. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda would say b'di eved, 5 and 5 would be okay. Hadron Oloch Kol Menachos. We'll get back to you. Per Kol Menachos. Friends, that was Daf Samach Gimel of Masechta Menachos, and with that we conclude the 5th parak of Masechta Menachos. On Daf 63 of Masechta Menachos, we learned about Minchas Machavas versus Minchas Marcheshes. Rabbi Yossi Aglidi says the difference is that a Minchas Machavas is uncovered and a Minchas Marcheshes is covered, has a lid on it. Reb Chanina ben Gamliel says that a Machavas is shallow, whereas a Marcheshes is deep, and I think that is usually how we assume. Then we discussed if a machvas / marcheshes refers to the vessel that it's prepared in or the actual mincha itself. Bishami is unsure. Beis Hillel says it definitely refers to the vessel. The nafkamina is, if a person says, I'm going to bring a machvas, so does he bring a vessel or does he bring a mincha that is brought in that vessel? Is it referring to the mincha or to the vessel? Bishami says, I'm not sure. Therefore, it has to wait until we can ask Eliyahu Hanovi. Beis Hillel says, no, I'm sure it refers to the vessel. Bring a machvas or a marcheshes vessel to the Beis HaMikdash. And finally, the loaves of a minchas maife soner. Rabbi Yehuda says it's either chalas or rikikin. Rabbi Shimon says it could be chalas or rikikin or even 50-50. And Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says, like his father said, either chalas or rikikin. The difference between him and his father would be the evid. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says if you bring 50-50, it's possible even b'di'evid, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says it would be kosher b'di'evid. Friends, that was Daf Samach Gimel of Masechta Menachos. Of course, we finished the 5th parak of Masechta Menachos. Very, very exciting. Have an awesome day, awesome week. Peace.